Good morning. Happy Sunday. How are you today? So, we're going to get back into a little bit of Eulis, the history of love, its wondrous magic, chemistry, rules, laws, moods, and rationale, being the third revelation of soul and sex. Also, reply to Why is Man Immortal? The solution of the Darwin problem, an entirely new theory by Paschal Beverly Randolph. And we're getting into Roman numeral 11, where we left off. So, 11, here we go. If a human monad, or zoosperm, from the left side of the father encounters a ripe ovum from the left side of the mother, that fact determines the gender. It will be male. And then it says, see a section on this very point in the sequel. Reverse the case, and reverse results will follow invariably. Though how to do it on purpose is a somewhat difficult problem to solve, yet it can be done, and is far more easily accomplished than at first sight may appear. Now, accidents and inversions, aversions and perversions occur in all departments of nature, but none so glaringly and positive as are encountered among human beings, and the missexing of them is one of the most common forms of malconstruction. For it frequently happens that a female zoosperm, which is the living monad or soul germ, supplied by the male parent and clothed in flesh by the mother, is unable to reach a corresponding female ovum and is compelled to be ex- expurgated, expurgated, or enter one from the wrong ovarium, in which case the body of the child will be of one gender, its soul and spirit of the opposite one. In a normal peopled world, such monstrosities, which now abound all about us, could not possibly be coaxed, drawn, or forced into existence as a human incarnation, and it is utterly impossible for such to appeal at all upon the world's stage if parents wholly or even partially love each other. And when such miscreations are seen, it is proof stronger than Holy Writ that love did not rule in the hour of their generation. Now, I have affirmed as a truth that true human sex is primarily of soul and secondarily of body. Hence, it follows that the post mortem state of such mixed beings is not a permanent duration of their condition here, for gradually, the true sex of the individual asserts its native force and power. The physical, or rather hyperphysical being, is gradually toned down or up to his or her true condition. The malformation beings, the malformation begins to lessen by slow degrees, its signs to disappear, and then they assume either the perfected states of man or that of woman. Their angularities are worn away, and the beings who on earth belied the story of their true gender become as other normal beings are. The memory of what they once were fades away, and they take rank among the truly human. Whoa, what a thought. 12. The philosophers of my day were generally blind too. Excuse me. Hmm. So 12. Oh man, I still have that tickle. Excuse me. The philosophers of my day were generally blind to, or oblivious of, the fact that the greatest degree of human excellence in offspring can never be attained, even though the parents are physically perfect, but that a wife, every way inferior, except in love, loving and being love, will give the world such children as will prove themselves, indeed, truly great and grandly good. The strongest force, mental power, and creative energy in the domains of science, art, philosophy, and literature everywhere, is invariably manifested by those who have the most loved and loving mother in them. People whose feminine or magnetic side entirely balances or slightly overweighs the electric or masculine moiety of their being. Okay, well, let's look it up. Moiety. Oh man, I just did a whole bunch of research on some really fascinating old rare books, which I want. And they're really, really expensive. If you can even buy them. Some of them you can only like look at special rare book rooms in libraries and stuff. So now I'm like, maybe I really should go there. And oh my gosh, right? Okay, so moiety. Uh-oh. Wait, I was in 12. Son of a gun. Seeing all those tabs I had open totally sidetracked me. Moiety? Where are you, word? Let's see if I can. Okay. It's each of two parts into which a thing is or can be divided.
Moiety.
Moiety. Each of two parts into which a thing is or can be divided. Cool, moiety. Okay, now I just got to find it back in here. It was the end of the sentence. Okay. Electric or masculine moiety of their being. Okay, so wait. People whose feminine or magnetic side entirely balances or slightly overweighs the electric or masculine moiety of their being. He is everywhere most welcomely greeted, caressed, and influential, who is most magnetic or female, not in the effeminate sense, but in the glowing, radiant heartfulness of his nature, is one who has not the most intellect, but most gentleness, love, affection combined with it. Take the real or ideal Nazarene, for example, who perished for loving mankind in his 49th year, see Bunsen, or going back of his alleged times, leaped the chasmal years to the Bowtree man, which is BO-TREE, and scores of others equally good, if not so famous. And whenever you find a great soul in the male body, depend upon it, he is more than half mother. For it is the woman side of such people that gives them power, genius, mental pith, and enables them to write their names in adamantine letters. Does that mean adamant? Adamantine letters upon the grand facade of the universal human temple. Adamantine. I see you! Exclamation point. Unbreakable.
Adamantine.
Adamantine. Unbreakable. Good morning, Crystal Shaman. Good to see you. I am well. You know, I after work yesterday, maybe like a couple hours after work, I laid down for a nap and then I slept until 2 a.m. Almost 2 a.m. actually, but so I got massive sleep. So I've just been like reading and researching stuff, and then I actually intended to go live hours ago, but then I was just caught up in what I was doing. Good to see you. Good morning. So that exclamation point, I see you. It is equally true that Those are the most glorious and glorified of the other gender, who were or are not the most electric, masculine, and intellectual, but the most tender, pure, loving, and feminine in all respects. 8. But you say, quote, "We women are not perfect yet. We want perfect offspring. Some of us have not just such husbands as we wish. We are too pure and sully our soul. We are too pure to sully our souls, no matter how great the temptation may be. We prefer to abide in marriage as we have found it. Some children, the results of such marriage, are not what we would have them. Therefore, pray tell us how to improve upon them hereafter." End quote. The answer is simple, the method easy. Never run the risk of conception, except you be mentally and physically prepared, not for it, but to utterly banish everything but the pure desire of your soul to give him all the love then, at the marriage, that you can, and wish, will, pray, desire, decree, that the result, if such there be, may be modeled after your soul's loftiest ideal. Keep up this all the time of gestation if possible, and the operation of the law just revealed will convince you and the world that nothing equal to it ever fell from human lips or pen. And then there's an asterisk, and then there's this whole little bit right here connected to the asterisk. It must have just been in the energy. Complaints on both sides, deep, if not loud, are made about want of passional fervor and affectional ardor, and unjustly often in both cases, for each takes a special pains and particular care not to strive in any way to bring about a different nerval condition. I once asked an Arab physician in Egypt if such things existed among the dark races, in the harems, or amidst the nomads. Yes, he said, but seldom. And when it does, the entire character of the food is changed. Abstinence, l'amour, is persisted in, and when both these fail, the weak one is by though other mesmerized with a long-fingered feather, tenderly, lightly, slowly drawn down the spine, breasts, and across all parts of the well-washed cuticle, so lightly as scarce to touch. There is a peculiar and powerful conducting property in such a feather, and never yet in 2,000 years has it been known to fail. In your cold land, America, the aphrodisiacal, I think, the aphrodisiacal treatment should be accompanied with the internal cordials I told you of, and Allah, precious Allah, will speedily bless the unfruitful pair. For a soul begotten without fervor had better never come to earth, for it will be wretched in a curse to itself until its flight toward the Gilum. There is more on these points, but they cannot be given herein. Please recall the incident of myself and the little fairy. Well, that is worth worlds to you. For suppose that, instead of wishing, willing, desiring, decreeing perfect offspring, you exert it to redeem your husband, to kindle up his love for you, for home, for his own fireside. But perhaps you care little or not for all that. Still you want health, beauty, strength, and long life, all of which are achievable by the same magic means. Else in such moments, during power absence, all these are lost, and another nail driven home into your coffin. Obey this grand law. Follow out this splendid rule, and ere long you will find that your power will perceptibly augment, most assuredly be felt, and before you are well aware of it, will work such a redemptive change as shall bathe your house in pearly glory. This principle will win him from all others, and kindle love where all was cheerless, wintry blasts before. I know it, have seen it tried, and am confident that she who persistently tries cannot by any possibility fail. Of course, the same power can be used by husbands. It is simply substituting active soul will, love, for indifference, passive body, and sufferance. But as sure as death, here is the starting point of a divine life. 13, was that 13? Yeah. To 14. 14. But how about promiscuity or variety in the love relations of life? Reply: there may be those who can find happiness therein. I never could, and do not want to make the experiment. My reasons will be seen further on in this work. But before we come to that, I wish at this point once for all to say that I believe in free speech and widespread agitation of all questions, social and sexual included. But while I champion the right, I by no means espouse the cause of those champions, for I must abide by the laws of my own individuality. And it is my firm belief that love variety in any shape is injurious to soul and body, and that the highest point of human power can only be reached by those who are amatively true to each other. For purity alone is the price of power, the secret of soul might, and it is the coin accepted at God's exchange for such glories as he keeps especially for true and earnest souls. I write these lines here because at this moment a paper lies in two senses, lies, Lies. A paper lies in two senses before me, which distinctly says that I am an advocate of certain opinions which my entire life has been spent in confuting. As witness every book I have ever written, every speech I have ever spoken. Having put this on record, I now drop all that matter, both the falsehoods and the falsifiers, forever and forevermore, as being beneath either notice or contempt. The demand for novelty, variety, or change in love matters is not a part of my being, and only foiled zealots, feminine, and worse things in male shape ever started such malignant slanders against me, human perverts of both genders who, failing to induce me to pervert certain knowledge and powers to their base ends and systems, sought to injure me by the meanest and most contemptible of all possible scandal. But I laughed at the Cyprians, and snapped my fingers at the rogues in grain. I am only capable of one love at one time, but that time to me fastens its further end to the eternities just ahead of us all. Temporary attractions departed with my dead years, thank heaven, and their fruitage was ever bitter, bitter. 15. So true is the statement concerning the vastly greater and superior relative value of the feminine principle that even in the present lu- lubricious lubricious age. Well, I'm not even going to finish the sentence. It looks huge. Lubricious age. Lubr.
Adamantine.
Okay. Lubricious. Lubricious, offensively displaying or intended to arouse sexual desire.
Lubricious.
Lubricious, smooth and slippery with oil or a similar substance. Lubricious. Did we just look that up? Okay. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start right at the 15 again. So true is the statement concerning the vastly greater and superior relative value of the feminine principle that even in the present lubricious age, when woman is almost everywhere wrongly rated, badly educated, and worse placed than she should be, there is still, deep down in the hearts of most, even the coarsest men, a measure of gallant respect, which occasionally gleams forth in noble deeds and brave championage of the sex, in such guise as to give great hope for fuller and better things by and by. The chivalry of all ages has not only proved uh, feel, Feal, means faithful, loyal. Definition of feel, archaic. Faithful, loyal. Cool. Fial. It doesn't have a pronunciation.
Feel.
It's just feel. Okay. Loyalty, that's what it meant, right? Faithful, loyal. The chivalry of all ages has not only proved feel to her and acknowledge its dependence upon her smile and frown, boldly fighting for her right or wrong, then, in the foretime, just as now, but has taken especial pains to elaborate, or rather to celebrate individual women and the universal sex. And this worship of the second, if not the primal element of nature, has been carried further and been more general than the modern reader might imagine. For instance, who among those who peruse this essay would believe, save on most indubitable evidence, that the very flower of one, nay, two, of the leading nations of the world this day do homage to the emblem of womanhood? Yet nevertheless, such is the fact. For the noblest regalia, the highest honor won and worn by Britain's proudest men, is to be acknowledged to be worthy of wearing the royal insignia of the garter, while the fleur-de-lis of France, meaning something precisely similar, has been the boost or the boast of her noblest for centuries. Man, I apologize. I have the cough again. Okay. Now, what does that same garter mean? Is there anyone so uninformed as to imagine for a moment that it signifies the mere string worn about the leg to keep nice stockings from dragging about fair heels? If so, here let that absurd notion be rectified, for the emblem signifies no such puerile nonsense at all. The motto of the order, princely and imperial, is in these days written, Honi soit qui mal y pense, translated to mean, to the uninitiated outside world. Translated to mean, to the uninitiated outside world, quote, evil to him who evil thinks, end quote, which, in a certain sense, is true and correct, for it does mean that, but not at all in the manner that people generally think it does. It has no reference to general evil whatever, but it expressly means evil of a certain and peculiar kind. For it so happens that the real first word is not honi, but yoni, and that means nothing more or less than the feminine organs of generation, coupled with their periodic functions. Now, while in all ages of the world's known history, a grand majority of all mankind, including all modern Christians, worship brute force and luxuriate in varied forms of phallic or priapic worship. And the phallus is the male organ of generation, and Priapus was its god, while they, I repeat, adored and adore creative energy as symbolized by the emblem alluded to, of which all steeples, towers, beacons, lighthouses, monuments, cenotaphs, and May and liberty poles and flagstaffs are but symbols, while that form of worship of the male god has been and still is almost universal, except in its coarser, grosser forms in our days. There have not been wanting other human hosts who did, and still do, pay homage at the shrine of the feminine deity, whose symbol is the rose, discus, arch, oval, and dome. And in some barbaric lands, the organ itself, openly, as in all lands sub rosa or secretly, but in civilized America, in its most low and disgusting form, for thousands seem to adore no god but lust and practically worship at no other shrine. Witness the universal prevalence of concubinage and harlotry, gotten to be even a licensed thing, and everywhere a winked at adjunct of civilization, to the debasement of man and blasphemy of God and womanhood, as of yore in Greco Roman days. But this time entailing dreadful penalties instead of rewards upon its multitudinous devotees. For not even the triplicate king evils, opium, alcohol, and tobacco, inflict such awful punishments upon their votaries as Cypriana, the salacious diva of harlotdom. To return to the point at issue, in some form or other, most of us worship the disc symbol, and four-fifths of the intelligent world is today agitated, not merely concerning the symbol and its nature, but about the tremendous mysteries it shadows and the vast volume of meaning that underlie and are embosomed within it. I trust, before this task of mine is finished, to demonstrate it to be in very truth what it claims, a new revelation of sex, and to make one successful effort to remove the subject far above the muck, slime, and filth hitherto attendant upon it. For if there is a divine thing on earth, it ought to be love, its laws, rules, phases, and moods, knowledge of which is a redeeming power. I alluded to the universality of sex emblems and will close this section by calling attention to our national banner. For the American flag floating from a staff is one of the finest illustrations of the double glory in the world, because the staff symbolizes the phallus. Its cord represents the chain of love binding the sexes together. The folds of bunting are emblems of women's floating drapery. The blue means his, her, their mutual truth and fidelity. The white, her purity. The red symbolizes her periodicity and ability to defy death by repeopling the world. I shall allude to other colors in another section. 16. A true Negro never reaches a stage of mental development enabling him to master metaphysics, nor at maturity does he ever surpass in capacity the adolescent average Anglo-Saxon. But in the power of maintaining love at high tide, he can discount all the white races of the globe. I make this observation at this point for two reasons. First, to draw a parallel. Second, to tell the reader that in my medical practice, in nervovital diseases, I often prescribed Negro meetings and 50 cents on the plate for being thereby benefited. They did so, these pale, haggard wives and chlorotic girls, and sat there to hear the ardent worshippers preach, sing, pray, shout, get glorious, and fill the room with a rich and healthy magnetism, every inhalation of which, to the sick ones, is worth a month's life. And a ton of doctor's stuff thrown in. Now for the other point. No sooner does an American boy get on his first pair of pants than he has prudent notions right straight along, and takes good care to demonstrate them with chalk upon the walls and fences everywhere. Now, this is not so dreadful after all, for such antics characterize all young animals, provided his elders would take him in hand and teach him the true meaning of the origin of the strange ideas which, from morbid nature, inculcation, precept, and example of his associates, he has imbibed but does not comprehend. I have said that this notion was the most passional one on earth, but then you know that nations and individuals are exactly alike, moved by the same forces, governed by the same principles, prompted by the same motives. And remember, too, that this nation is but a boy yet, not out of its teens. Hence, its universal pudicity is not to be wondered at, nor that its principal, most sincere, and best paid for worship is, and for some time to come yet will be, at the passional shrine, in or out of wedlock. The same thing prevails all over the globe, and likely for the same reason, i.e., because as yet it is but a baby world. At all events, its worship is of the character already set forth, and its best men have been the most earnest devotees, for somehow or other there is not and never has been a really great man in it, but who has been more or less chargeable with practices not accordant with the strictest rules of nunship or monkhood, which is oftener, in results, monkeyhood instead. Monkeyhood. 17. Hardgrave Jenkins of England, the eminent Rosicrucian, writing upon the subject of the garter, and before quoting Ashmole in regard to the same matter, observes, quote, all the world knows the chivalric origin of the most noble order of the garter. It arose in a princely act, rightly considered princely, when the real, delicate, inexpressibly high-bred motive and its circumstances are understood, which motive is systematically and properly concealed. Our great King Edward III, picked from the floor, with the famous words of the motto of the Order of the garter, or as we interpret it, by adding a new construction with hidden meanings, the garter, or a special cestus, shall we call it, of the beautiful and celebrated Countess of Salisbury, or Salisbury, with whom it is supposed King Edward was in love. End quote. In other words, she dropped a cloth which men ought never to behold, and Edward acted the part of a true gentleman in preserving her from ridicule and shame, by turning an accident fools would giggle at, into one commanding profound reverence and chivalric respect from all who pride themselves on being men. Old Elias Ashmole, the very highest British authority on the points here involved, writing about them, says, quote, the Order of the Garter, by its motto, seems to challenge inquiry and defy reproach. Everybody must know the story that refers the origin of the name to a piece of gallantry. Either the Queen or the Countess of Salisbury, having been supposed to have dropped one of those very useful pieces of feminine attire at a dance. Here follows some Latin, the gist of which I have already given in the conclusion of the last section. PBR. The ensign of the order, in jewelry or enamel, was worn originally on the left arm, being in the form of a bracelet to the arm. It might possibly divert the attention of men from the reputed original. It might be dropped and resumed without confusion. And the only objection I can see to the use of such an ornament is the hazard of mistake from the double meaning of the term Paris Paracelsus, which signifies not only a garter but breeches, which our English ladies never wear. End quote. That settles the point. The garter was a girder, which the lady dropped, and the true gentleman picked it up, pinned it to his breast, and challenged the world's respect for himself and women forever and forevermore. Glorious Edward. 18. Isn't it curious that the generality of even educated people fail to see that the idea of sex as a principle, and in all its implications, runs through everything, even language? In French, there's no it, as with us, but everything is il or elle, he or she. We all know that human speech is the result of the gradual development of the race through ages of time, its different forms being determined by the differences of latitude, soil, climate, physical, and other concomitant surroundings. Letters are but external symbols of human thought, and in them all two basic ideas predominate, i.e., the male and female. The letter D and its equivalents, the Egyptian hieroglyph and hieratic figure, hieratic figure, and the Phoenician one likewise, is but the feminine symbol, more or less perfectly drawn, according to the ability of the scribes or sculptors who made them. Thus also, and nearer nature, are their equivalents of the Roman R, while their N, L, and sh, or sh, are unquestionably suggested by the phallus, or lingam, the opposite idea. And so it is all through the entire list of alphabets, ancient and modern, some letters representing one emblem, others its opposite, and still others the union of the two. Instance, the archaic alphabet, Greek, Phoenician, Italic, as they existed from 1000 to 600 years before Christ's date. For the Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Daleth, Hey, Var. Oh, these are all the letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Okay, I apologize for my pronunciation. Hey, Var, Zin. I think that the C is silent. Heth, Kaf, Teth, Lamed, Samek, Ayin, and Tav, and their English, Phoenician, Greek, and Italic equivalents as unmistakably emblematize the above three ideas, as that rain tells of growth in field, forest, and fen. What is the soft, sweet, flowing circle or ring but the symbol of faith, eternity, eternal love, magnetism, the yoni, the female emblem, the letter O? What is the letter I, or the figure 1, but the symbol of generative power, the lingam, the male? I, all letters are but interchanges, interminglings of the two original forms, the I, or male, and the O, or female ideas. Dude, this guy is so cool. This is so reminiscent, too, of the Bach saga and that whole language. I don't know, maybe one day I'll do that. I keep pulling it out and not doing it, but yeah, one day at a time. Yeah, it's so interesting, right? Language, I love it. For instance, B is 2/3 female, 1/3 male. C is mainly female. D is both sexes. Q suggests union. And in fact, all letters convey the same meaning in clear or less clear form. 19. The lingam, linga, or lingam, lingam, linga, lingam, male organ worship, is but the reverse of the discal or oval worship. The dome everywhere is but the female idea. The minaret represents the male. And as said before, actually the colors of all our flags, red, white, and blue, green, and yellow, are representative of the same, or garter, idea. The first two meaning the spiritual purity and sacrificial blood of women. The blue already explained. The green representing the result of the union of male and female, production, fertility, growth. And the yellow typifying ripeness, or the first completion of the destiny ordained to both. 20. Torches, flambeaux, and fireworks everywhere symbolize sexual, therefore creative passion. And what this last means will be seen hereinafter, for it is not limited to the generation of progeny. They typify vaguely to some, clearer to others, the strange, inner mystic fire which, unlike all other forms of flame, has its origin in God, and its flow from within us, not from without. For passion rises in the mind when normal, in the soul, not the body, save when our natures are inverted. And even then its fountain is in the unholy soul, before it leaps to the still more unholy body. Desire is always first metaphysical before it is material in humankind. But when the conscious and moral poles are reversed, the spark that explodes the mental flame may be, and often is, sent from the body first to the soul. Thus, certain foods or drinks generate an excess of caloric in the nervous ganglia of the reproductive system. A spark, spontaneous combustion, leaps thence to the brain. The soul catches fire and hurls its masses of lurid flame through the cerebrum, cerebellum, spinal cord, ovaria, prostate gland, testes, or vagina, and draw the curtains o'er the dreadful scene. 21. Just as sex runs through all nature, so does it obtain of nations, tribes, peoples, and ages. Some are entirely female or male in their genius, art, literature, and general specialities. And so plainly does this truth manifest itself that I do not care to occupy time in proving it. But this will I say, the most masculine nations tend greatest to feminine worship, and, per contra, the ideal of the feminine peoples is the masculine worship. Finally, the most masculine man adores at the female shrine, and his god is far more she than he, while the most feminine woman worships the most masculine man. Thus here, there, and everywhere, the two universal principles seek each other, blend, fuse, intermingle, and unwittingly obey the mighty dual law. All right, I'm going to read one more because then I just have an hour before work. And so 22. XXII. Love between human beings of opposite sexes is of two general kinds. First, that in which passion is not an integrant, such as the love between parent and child. That which is wholly amissive or purely friendly. That which is platonic or purely spiritual, ethereal, based upon affinities of taste, similitudes of soul. Similitudes. That which is founded upon gratitude. And lastly, that which is holy and absolutely mystical, the don't know why, but it is so kind of feeling, and which, while it may be to a limited extent gratified on earth, yet its full fruition can only be achieved, felt, and realized after both shall have become citizens of the country of disembodied souls. Similitudes. Does that mean similar? Similitudes. Similitudes. Quality or state of being similar to something. Similitude.
Similitude.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Similitudes of soul. Now, it often happens that people in whom this sort of love exists mistake its nature and significance. Imagine that they were born for each other, and so they are, but not for the life below. They marry, and to their first surprise and subsequent horror, discover that for all the purposes of matrimony, one is oil, the other is water, without a particle of mental line to combine and fuse the two together, and thereby form a true calcimate of soul. Quote, this is like a poem or something. I think the pity of this earthly life is love, so sighs a singer of the day, whose pensive strain my sympathetic lay sadly prolongs, alas, the endless strife of love's sweet law with cold conventions rules, the loving souls unvolved, the loving souls unloved, the perfect mate, after long years of learning, found too late. The treason of false friends, the frown of fools, the fear that baffles bliss in beauty's arms, the weariness of absence, and the dread of lover or of love, untimely dead. Musing on these and all the direful harms that helpless human hearts are doomed to prove, I think the pity of this life is love. End quote. So do I, but even a greater pity exists where, fixed by the most ardent hopes, one or both finds out that not a real tie of soul binds the twain together. Then comes the unveiling, and, my God, what an awful, horrible spectre stands frowning where each expected to behold and hold. She an Adonis, he a perfect Hebe, a perfect Hebe. Hebe. Well, let's find out what it means. Jewish person. Okay, I thought maybe so, but
Hebe.
oh, and I even said it right. No way. Cool. Grand Rising. I'm just about wrapping it up here, but good morning, Heidi. Boom shock like a pop! Dude, I do love that. I thank you. Okay, we're finishing up this section right now. He a perfect Hebe. When the mistake is made, such parties marvel and wonder how on earth it can be so, and why the actual marriage produces effects so utterly foreign to their expectations and hopes. In the union of two such, there is a compatibility of spirits to a great extent, but none whatever on the amative plane. The sex of form, for the actual fact of marriage, produces utter dissatisfaction to him, horror, pain, mental anguish, disease, and lingering death to her. This generates discord and despair, general unhappiness, and is almost sure to drive the man to the house of the strange woman, and his wife either to insanity, the grave, or the arms of a lover who can affiliate with her to some extent, at least upon the external or mainly sensuous plane. And the upshot of the matter is divorce and 2 wretched lives. Now, in my travels up and down the lanes of Marriageland, I have seen scores of such cases, and there are other scores, millions, that I have not seen. And of those terrible secret, and of whose terrible secret no one but themselves are aware. And sometimes they do not know what ails them, and, and attribute their distresses to 1,000 causes, not one of which is the real and true ones. When further on this new revelation, I shall analyze the matter. Hundreds who read it will see the real point and probably make no effort to better their sad condition. From such unions as these spring a class of children so utterly angular and deficient that the marvel is they ever find peace at all on earth, or enjoy a happy hour. Wow. This is pretty fascinating. Dang, right? Yeah, 1 hour until work. I better call it. Yeah, 22 is a good place to stop. Thanks for hanging out with me this morning, Crystal Shaman, and Heidi. Just at the end here, perfect. I love y'alls. And welcome to any who come later as well. So we'll get back more into this reading another day. I wish you all wonderful Sundays. And I'll see you next time. Mwah. Thank you. I love yous. See you then.